think we're going to talk about stress, the bane of modern existence. Everyone has it. Causes more health problems than we ever want to deal with. Causes more emotional problems than we want to deal with. And how do we... Almost everything in today's society causes stress for us. We are constantly bombarded by telephone calls. Everyone needs an answer right now. No one can wait. And how do we feel? Am I keeping up? Am I keeping up? Which just causes stress. Stress causes all kinds of things. It causes, as I say, mainly health problems. You get nervous, you get stomach problems, you get, actually you get allergies, you get heart problems, you get everything when it's taken to a high degree. Starts with basic stomach problems, headaches, that kind of thing. Oftentimes we pretend, oh, I'm not feeling any stress, I'm a little busy. But how do you start catching colds, start getting all kinds of things. All of these things are caused by basically stress. Not enough sleep, not enough feeling pressure from outside. Someone's wanting something of you right now, and then you start demanding it of yourself. And how do you make that stop? There's a lot of different ways that people have suggested. I had a wonderful tour of Pittsburgh today, and one of them was going up to Mount Washington and looking over the whole of the rivers and the skyline, and it makes you feel more expansive. It takes away the feelings like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. You look at the whole thing and you go, yeah. Then we walked around Point Park and the fountains, and I found out that we have a Pittsburgh Trevani where the three rivers meet. And so you have the holy convergence right there. Then we went up to the universities, and Kari showed the mindfulness room. And it was interesting. Everyone is talking about mindfulness all the time. It's the greatest, latest catchword. One of our young women in Santa Barbara is teaching small children, and they want to teach mindfulness. And she says, I don't even think they know what mindfulness is. It's something, you sit down and be quiet for a couple minutes, but how does that help if we don't have any kind of, we can tell people, sit down and be quiet, but do their minds get quiet? They might be able to sit down, okay, but not for very long. Now, when we walked into the mindfulness room today, there were two people sleeping and another one came in to sleep. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it's a nice quiet place. But what are people thinking when they think mindfulness? Is that what, it's a Buddhistic term, mindfulness. So what do they mean by mindfulness? As far as I have perceived, it's not being in the future and not being in the past. It's being completely in the present. And we've had a lot of New Age books written about that. Be Here Now. Let's see. Wherever you go, there you are. And these books all tell us that it doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing, because we are the cause of our own stress. We manufacture it, we generate it in our own minds. we put the pressure on ourselves. Yes, there are external pressures. Yes, there are deadlines. When you're in college, there's a tremendous amount of pressure because you have so much to study and you have to produce. But is there really that pressure, or are we causing it ourselves by wanting other things? We're willing to study, but we also want to do. We want to be with our friends, we want to do this, we want to do that. So we create this pull inside our mind. And that causes that I'm not going to get done on time. Oh my God, can I get all of the books read? Can I do this? I'm not going to have time. But part of it is because of our own pressure on ourselves. I like to, part of the constant pressure today, it used to be, is our divorces. Plain and simple, we are leashed to them, and we pay attention to them. And I have a friend who was doing some construction work for us, and I used to try and reach him on his cell phone, and he never answered. And finally, I get a hold. You know what I did? I called his wife to tell her to get him to call me, and it worked. I would always call his wife, and I'd say, "Make Jim call me." And when I finally got a hold of him, he said, "Krishnaprana, my phone is a tool, not a leash. I will answer it when I want to." And so every once in a while, when I start to get like carrying it around and it beeps, and I think, God, see what that is. And I think, no, it's a convenience for me. It's not something that I have to pay attention to immediately. I mean, probably some of you don't even remember. Before we had email, it took a long time to communicate with people. You wrote a letter, sent it snail mail, and you didn't have to respond immediately. You had time to think about what you were going to say, and you had time to compose a letter. Now we shoot off these emails so quickly that sometimes we get into trouble because we answer too fast. I don't know if anyone else has had that, but we have scheduling problems if anyone answers too fast. Yeah. So how do we control our stress? Take a walk. Leave your phone at home. Go out and just take a walk and look at nature. See how beautiful where we live. And every place has gorgeous places to walk. I mean, you've taken me to 2 or 3 of them already. Sitting down on Point Park was gorgeous. Walking around the waterfall, fantastic. You know, there's people there. It's in the middle of the city, but it's still magnificent. And it makes it clear, breathing the clean air, clearing your whole head relieves stress. Getting a good night's sleep relieves stress. Don't stay up too late. Not a problem with me. Don't have too much coffee or tea before you go to bed so you can sleep through the night. They're really simple things that help us relieve stress. And of course, the most important is we've talked about it every single day, controlling our minds. Taking a look at why are we stressed? Why are we putting this pressure on ourselves right now? What is it that's causing the pressure? Is it an honest-to-goodness deadline that you have to meet? And you do have to do those. We all have to do those. So we lessen the other activities and concentrate on the one thing we have to do. and do that one thing. And then most of the time, you're finished long before you thought you would be. Long before you thought you would be. Because you haven't been distracted and pulled in different directions. And that relieves stress. The other way, as everyone has said, is go out and exercise. Not over-exercise, but take, a lot of friends when I take runs. I don't run, but take a long walk. Do something that you enjoy doing for half an hour, 15 minutes. That will change the whole set of your mind. You don't feel pressured when you go do that. I think one of the biggest stresses today is financial. Are we going to, in our area it is. I know that because people feel, they had an article in our Santa Barbara News Press on what it takes to live in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is a very expensive place to live, extremely expensive. And they interviewed people who were, of course, very wealthy, and they said, well, they just live here. And then they interviewed all the people who were not wealthy. And many of them have to hold down at least 2 jobs. And all they really have is they pay their rent and get their food. They don't have any extra money for anything. So this is extremely stressful. They can't generate enough money in Santa Barbara to have a surplus. That's an honest to goodness stress, in today's world, because they're not monks, they're not nuns, they're out there. And they were asked, why do you do it? And almost to a person they said, well, it's worth it to me because we live in this beautiful place. And when I'm not working, I'm here. So they had come to an understanding of themselves that relieved the stress of having to work 2 or 3 jobs, 2.5 jobs. I mean, they were working like 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, just to stay there. But they managed their jobs so they had some time off in the afternoon so they could go enjoy themselves and be there. We can all do that. We can all look at what we're doing and how we can adapt our everyday behavior so that we alleviate the stress in our minds. When all of these new books came out, like Be Here Now, one of our Vedantists, and we have people who have been coming to the temple for 25 years, and they're still not quite sure who Ramakrishna is, but they're very staunch. They listen to all of the philosophy and they believe in that, but they don't know much about the devotional part of Vedanta. They come to the pujas, but they're not really okay. But as one of our children said in the early days, what's a puja? And he says, oh, you pray a little and eat a lot. His version, I think that's some of our devotees' versions too. But this man came up to me and he said, have you read this wonderful new book? And I said, which one is it? He said, Be Here Now. And I went, no. But I decided, well, I'll take a look through it. And I went through it and I went, it's just basic Vedanta again. Basic Advaita Vedanta. Be in the present. Don't worry about the past. Don't speculate about the future. Be here. And I thought, okay, all of these new books that are coming out, and there's practically one every day. When you start reading them, they really are basic Vedanta philosophy. They're not saying that, They're either basic Buddhist or basic Vedanta, but they're telling people how to relieve the stress of everyday life so that they can enjoy where they are. And this to me is stress relief. I mean, I think it was Swamiji that said that there's enough time in every day for us to practically conquer the world if we have control of our minds. Now that's a rough, very rough generalization of what he said. But he did. He said if we use the concentration of 1/10 of our mind, we could get all of the work that we ever had to do done. That's 1/10 of our mind. And how do we usually spend our days? I mean, I can get up in the morning now if I don't watch it. The wonderful thing is if you can get up in the morning and just sit and meditate or sit and do japa for doesn't need to be more than 10 minutes. That will actually calm your mind for the day and set the tone. And if you're busy, I mean, you have a lot of work to do. 10 minutes is a lot to do. But it makes the entire difference for your whole day. And if you can sit down again at the end of the day and sit for 10 or 15 minutes. I mean, Swami Prabhupada used to say, anyone who is not a monk or a nun, if they can do that, they're doing even more than monks and nuns do, meditating 3 times a day. Because they are working harder than we are. Just to make that effort every single day. You go out, you work, you're tired, you have all of these you have to worry about the money, you have to worry about the family, you have to take care of those things. So if you can sit down twice a day, it's fantastic. And you will find, if you try it for a while, consistently, not just, I have a friend who, she gets up and meditates every day, but it's a different time every day. It's when it fits her schedule. That's not quite what they mean. Set the schedule and be consistent about it, and that will change your mindset. Now what she's doing is good too, because at least she's doing it. And anyone who makes the effort doesn't lose anything. But it is really important for stress, dealing with stress, to do that. And in order to do that, you have to get a good night's sleep. Otherwise, you won't wake up in the morning in time to do it. You'll be a little foggy, or you won't, you'll be running late and have to hurry. And, I don't have time today. But if we try, we actually do have time. I mean, you can get 6-8 hours of sleep, and there's how much left? 16, 18 hours of the day. How much time do we just spend thinking about what happened yesterday, thinking about what we're going to do tomorrow? Oh dear, I have to do this. And then we set the stage for stressing ourselves out. Mm-hmm. And if I don't get this done, and I have to make this appointment, did I check in at the airport? Am I going to be late? All these things we can wind ourselves up. If we just do it, forget it. Don't worry about it. Take care of the little problems that come up. We won't be stressed. Or it will lessen. It doesn't go away at once. And you will get it still every once in a while. But what kinds of, have I mentioned everything that stresses people? Interpersonal relationships can stress people because they don't through misunderstandings or, I don't know, all kinds of reasons. Those are worrying about other people and their opinions can stress you. Someone said, what anyone says about me is their business. It's none of my business what they're saying about me. Or what they think of me. That's their business. But so often we judge our self-worth and get stressed by what others think of us. And we think they're judging me and I'm not, unfairly or cruelly. And all of these things we can stress ourselves with. But it really is none of our business what anyone else thinks. It's our business what we think and what we do. And that's the only thing we can take care of. If, as I think I've said before, if you look at something, if there's a problem, look at it. And look at it very, very carefully and decide if there's anything in what is being said that's correct. Then correct, or true. Then correct what you're doing. But it's not the end of the world and it's not going to last if we correct our mistakes. All it does is hurt our egos a bit to say, I really blew it, I was wrong, I'm sorry. Although if you're a Jesuit, they always said it's easier to say I'm sorry than to ask permission. The Jesuits lived next door to us and they would go ahead. They said, no. It's always easier to say I'm sorry than to say ask permission to do something. So, sometimes it's true. What are some other stresses in today's world? I think they're almost all mental. And it's something that we have always ignored in this country. Mental, you're supposed to be okay. The British have a one thing, keep calm and carry on. They never talk about anything. And in one way it's good, in another way it's like, really? But it's a good thing. If you can keep calm and carry on, it's a wonderful thing to do. But how do you keep calm? You don't worry about what the outcome is. You take each thing as it comes up each day. I mean, they were in the middle of the Blitz when the Queen started that saying. Mm-hmm. The Queen Mother started that. And the bombs were falling, everything was happening. They should have been stressed to the max. And instead she just keep calm and carry on. And it's what they did. Go down to the bomb shelter, come back up and go back to work. It was a great lesson in detachment. Because under that kind of stress, ours look kind of silly and self-indulgent at times. We tend to magnify things that we're doing or are happening around us or to us. I love that. They did that to me. Mostly they don't. Because mostly they don't care. The only thing they're thinking about is themselves. So, I remember there was a saying that this is pertaining to American girls. So all you guys are just going to have to listen to it. When you're 15, you know everyone is looking at you. By the time you're 25, you're looking at them, sort of. By the time you're 45, no one's looking at anyone. And by the time they're 65, you know you're invisible. And that's it. And you can do anything you want to in those. They've never been looking at you anywhere. Everyone's walking around thinking about themselves. But we project this and we stress ourselves out trying to be the way we think we should be, the way we should look, the way we should act. No one cares. I mean, basic politeness and human kindness and thinking of the other person, and they're never going to even notice you. And that releases all the stress. Everything. It's really, we are basically our own little universe that walks around. And sort of like a solar system, we walk around with other universes right there, little planets. We try not to bump into each other. But we're each pretty contained in ourselves. And that in itself causes stress if we think we're that one little universe. But as soon as we join the solar system and we're all working together, then we don't feel that stress because we all keep each other there. Gravity holds us together. Oneness holds us together. Yeah. This is hard because are most of you involved with, you're involved with business, medicines, colleges. Those are stressful situations. You have to deal with a lot of external pressures. Yeah. How do you deal with it when you start feeling stressed? Because each one of you will have a way too. I read, they just had an article and it said, in order to relieve stress and anxiety, and one of the ways to do it was to experience that sense of awe that you feel when you're a child. When you see something for the very first time that stops you in your tracks and you go, I think on a very high scale, Ramakrishna's was when he was walking across the field and saw the white birds against the black clouds and went into ecstasy. That sense of awe that there's something so much bigger than you that is operating you can probably remember the 2 or 3 times when you felt that. As I say, one time I saw a meteor shower in Hawaii. Every single body in the sky was a falling star or a meteor. Every one of them. And the whole thing was in this pale green color. It was really an amazing thing. And we went out and it was like, I tried to replicate it every time they say it's meteor showers in December. And I've never seen it again. But I still remember the feeling. The Grand Canyon, the first time I looked down into it, it was like, really? Walk up to the edge and you've seen pictures of it forever, and not one picture in the world depicts that feeling when you walk to the edge and you look down. Have any of you been on that glass bridge that they built? Have you been there? How's that?
Please don't break.
I mean, I think I would be like clinging to it. mean, I liked standing on the edge and looking down, that was enough. But walking out over it, wow. But I think those kind of feelings, you don't feel any stress, you don't feel anything, you feel so much a part of the entire universe that your small self has disappeared for that moment. You know, and there's other things that do it. I mean, you know, we can all think of what it was. Think of something that made us feel like that. They say that the astronauts all feel it. They come back completely changed from having floated in space and looked back at the Earth. And I mean, we can see pictures of it, we can semi-imagine it, but to actually be there and so this psychiatrist and psychologists say that in order to relieve some of the pressures of today's life that we all feel, that create anger, the violence, the hatred, that we should all try to get out somewhere in nature, take a hike, do something that, and leave all of your cell phones and devices at home so you can't be contacted no matter what, be it for a day, and try and find a place that you can feel that complete oneness with nature again. They say that that is extremely helpful, that people have changed their entire mentalities. They were working with veterans who had PTSD, and it said that they actually lessened it tremendously by creating new habits like this, getting out where they were in nature. So take a hike, go for a walk, anything. And we've always heard that. I mean, you know, I see nowadays kids who are stressed, and I can't really comprehend why children are stressed. Because when I was a child, I didn't think about anything. I went to school, did my schoolwork, and went out and played. And I knew the world was perfect. And now I see these little kids, I mean, they're like 3rd grade. We have some kids, and they're carrying backpacks full of homework. I mean, the poor little things are not going to have any backs or necks left by the time they're 15. They're carrying around so much stuff. And what are we doing to them? I mean, what's the pressure that they have to do all this? What in the world are we trying to achieve? And that always goes back to creating desires. What is it that we want, that we're willing to sacrifice our health, our well-being, our happiness? What is it that we want, that we're willing to do that to ourselves? I don't know. Each person has to answer that themselves. Because are we willing to sacrifice? We're in a society that keeps saying we have to have more and more and more and more and more, but there's never any satisfaction in that. There's always more. And I think that's going along with that kind of desire instead of saying enough. I have enough. If more of us would say, I have enough, then perhaps the society would change. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, there's all kinds of ways we can speculate and think what kinds of things we could do to help this situation. And I have no idea. I mean, obviously we have an idea. We're all sitting here.
Yeah.
and we're trying to build our spiritual lives rather than our material lives. And we have a direction. And if we can help by example and by whatever we can do, other people try to go on that, to look inside rather than outside, then that will change some of the problems. And hopefully relieve their stress. Make them say, it's okay. It's okay not to have everything. Talking yesterday about the latest cell phones and the latest computers. When I was, about 10 years ago, the little girl next door came over and she said, her father came to me and he said, she wants an MP3 player. And I said, God, what's that? He said, I'm not sure. I said, well, what does it do? And she said, I think it plays music. I went, oh, okay. And she came over and I said, what do you want for your birthday, Melissa? And she said, MP3 player. And I went, what is it? And she said, I don't know. But everyone has one. And I think, she said it on an 8-year-old level. But I think a lot of us do the same thing. We, without even knowing we're doing it. And then because we don't have it, even though we don't know what it does or is, we feel this kind of nagging stress about, well, I should have one. Everyone else has one. I should have one too. She didn't get one that year until she figured out what they did. But so often we do that to ourselves. What are you laughing about? Why is your wife laughing so hard now?
I have never understood.
Okay.
It's so stressful, that.
So stressful.
And that's, according to Maharaj, that's one of the best ways to relieve stress. It's to laugh.
Yeah.
It also improves digestion. It makes every part of your body relax. So they told jokes and played tricks on each other.
I remember when I was in dental college, one of my friends, she was, for a month, she was going on saying, I need this olive dress. So one day I asked her, why are you into olive? What is the, you like the color? What color? I said, olive is a color. That I didn't know. I wanted an olive dress.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, we do these things to ourselves. These are obvious. But ours are a little more subtle, but they're the same. I had another friend who liked electronic gadgets. And I knew this about himself. He'd been practicing Vedantist for 30 years. He came to visit and I said, we had lunch. Everything was quiet. I said, so what's your new thing? And he said, oh, I thought you'd never ask. And he immediately pulled out his device and proceeded to tell us all about it. So, I thought you'd never ask. Of course, this, at the table with the entire convent, and they're all laughing at him. We were just making you squirm. We weren't going to ask you. See if you brought it up.
Or test how long, or test his patience. And how
We
long
tested his patience, but we didn't want to make it. We didn't want to torture him. We just wanted to test his patience.
You knew he wanted to show.
Oh, of course. And we knew he would have a new device. We knew that without the slightest doubt. You know? We did, so. And he knew it too. I think he knew we would just. Yeah. So any other ways that you personally use to lessen stress? I'll tell you one that's really detrimental. Shopping or eating. It really ruins your health. Whatever your bank account. Try and think of one that's a little less destructive. Which is why taking a walk is a good thing. Because it doesn't cost anything. You get to breathe fresh air, and you get your mind away from the pulls of society and business. Coming to Pittsburgh has been amazing because we don't have fall leaves. And so walking through the leaves and seeing the trees without them, it's a whole different thing for me right now. And it's gorgeous, and I've enjoyed that a lot. And then, yeah, it's good. And I've not had any stress since I've been here, and already the texts are coming, emails are coming. I don't have to deal with them right now. I just want to come home tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have to look at these things. And I don't have to worry today. So, can we all put that stuff off till when it actually needs addressing?
Mataji, one of the methods you were mentioning was just walking out and looking at nature. And just a couple of days back, there was an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is a famous astronomer. And this was on one of the late night shows or something.
Staying up too late, huh?
No, I watched it the following day. So
oh, okay.
I can't really stay up that late. And this was just after the elections, and the host was asking him, so how do you deal with what's going on, and how what all based on what all has happened over the past couple of days, how do you deal with this? And he said, oh, you know what I just do? Just walk up, and he has a telescope. I just walk up to the balcony, I take up my telescope and look at the sky. And then you realize that all you are is but a speck in that vast, expansive universe, and that makes you feel that, oh, whatever is happening here is of no significance whatsoever in the cosmic realm.
I think, well, that's what these psychologists are talking about too. That's exactly it. We got a telescope so we could do that. The skies in Santa Barbara, we don't have much city light, so the Natural History Museum used to bring the astronomy club up, and they would set up their telescopes in the parking lot. And they would invite us, since we were giving them our parking lot, they invited us out to look through their telescopes. But, so at one point we had a telescope of our own, and we were looking out the dining room window across over to the ocean, and all of a sudden we saw another telescope looking right at us. And then we went, Okay, well, we'll get rid of that. We don't want to spy on people a mile away.
Time to close the blinds.
Yeah. We didn't have any in our time. We thought we were totally away from it. That was an eye-opener. But, no, I mean, yes, often when we can do the same thing, we go out in the middle of, late at night, not in the middle of the night, but say 10, 11, and if it's full moon night or a beautiful night when all the stars are out, we just take a blanket and lay down in the parking lot and watch the stars. Because you'd fall over if you try and do it like that. Relieve the stress of, am I going to fall over backwards? Just lie down.
You start out that, you fall over.
Well, you keep your head back too long, and you start to get lose your balance.
And then you'll be stressed about your back.
Yeah, mostly. Right. So we relieve the stress by yeah. But it's, then we have visitors who come, and they go out at night, and we just had one, and she wouldn't walk across the parking lot because she heard that we had mountain lions. She was sure there was going to be a mountain lion right then and there. I just went, they really don't want to be around you. Honest, they're going to do everything they can to avoid you. She didn't believe it. She would not walk across that parking lot with her husband. They were visiting. And he kept telling her, yeah. They have mountain lions, I'm sure they do. Yep. Bears, too. It's all true.
You have bears
Yeah.
and mountain lions.
And coyotes.
And?
And coyotes.
No.
And bobcats. But they don't want to be around you.
And
We're all going to
rattlesnakes.
walk along and they're going to avoid. We're going to avoid.
And rattlesnakes.
And rattlesnakes. Would you all like to come visit?
We visited.
Would you like to stay? They come out at night. No stress. Don't worry about it.
The lights may not work, but you can fix them.
Yeah. Parking lot lights? Oh, we forgot to get them. We're trying to get them remote controlled right now. They don't work. That's not true. They do work. Yeah. So. Well, like the supermoon, you have to get out and see it while it's here. 68 years. How long before it comes back again?
18 more years.
18 more years?
34.
34.
Maybe I'll be alive. It's going to be iffy.
But 18 or 34, which of them?
2034.
34.
Where's in the math?
So I gotta see it now, right?
Star Wars.
There used to be a puzzle based on Krishna and Arjuna. When we were kids, we used to play that quiz. They say that after Gita or something, Krishna gave a question to Arjuna. He draws a line and says, without touching that line, make it smaller.
Huh?
Arjuna is stressed out. He's trying to figure out how to do it.
Where was the line drawn?
Just maybe on a paper or something.
Okay.
And then Arjuna cannot figure out. And then Krishna, what he does is, he draws a bigger line on top of it. So, well, there are times when we are stressed out, you think what you're doing is very hard
Or the most important.
yeah.
Or the biggest. You're right. Yeah. I've never heard that before. I'm glad you told me that. I'm going to use that. No problem.
More stress for the kids.
Yep. No, ours aren't stressed. Our Sunday school is way less than stressful. They eat candy. It's just not stressful.
No stress for anyone.
Their parents want to get them back. Not our problem. So.
Sometimes.
What time is it?
Oh, sorry.
I don't know. 9 o'clock.
10 minutes to 9.
Okay.
Sometimes there are stressors or theoretical stressors on which you think you have no solution. And I understand that there is a way of saying that in the big picture, or one of the several methods. And yet the feeling doesn't go away that you need to do something about it. I will give 2 examples. One is the Trump. It is quite a stressor for me because it was, mainly because it had become afraid of which way the country and the world will be dictated. Knowing fully well I personally perhaps cannot do much about it, but still it looks like it's a call for action and other things. That is unresolved stress in some way. I mean, I constantly, these days, think of that. I do not know if it is stress or not, but it bothers me, that thing.
Yeah.
And the other very similar example, which is only if it happens to us, then we know, and it has happened to me, and therefore I know. When you have, under the circumstances, as in my case, I live here and my mother, who is very old, lives there, and she's sick, and there's nothing we can do about that, and she's getting the best possible care. So I should say I'm fine. I've done what I did, and the rest is in Sri Ramakrishna's hand.
Yes.
And so on. And yet,
I know.
there is a stress factor. Could you help me deal with both of them, Trump and his mother?
Oh my God. I think the entire half of the United States, half of the United States is holding their breath to see what's going to happen. And I'll say half because that's what he got elected by, the other half. Every time I think about it, I try to remind myself that it really is the divine play. It really is the divine play, and we often don't see the big picture. There was that story that I know they've told us when a prince and his servant were out hunting, and the prince fell and broke his arm. And then they came trying to get people for fighting in the army, and they couldn't take him because his arm was broken. And his father had said, they said, oh, this is terrible. And he says, well, we'll see, I don't know. And then it was good. Then the other fellow was taken off to war because he was well. So we don't know what's